Hello, everyone out there. I'm making the assumption that if you're watching this, you're a part of the Libero community, considered being part of the Libero community, or at some point departed the Libero community. Regardless of which fits yours, this message is likely for you. I have answers. I know I said for a long time I don't have answers. I have answers. I don't know that you're going to like the answers, but I have answers. And I'm waiting on other answers. So I haven't gotten all of them, but I've got ones that I think are significant enough for informing you at least. And then you will need to make whatever decision you choose, whether that's whatever the decision is. I'm simply informer, like the song, right? So I heard back. And this, the only thing missing here is the because this is all like clown show at this point. We go from completely ignoring Crypto Talk Radio, founded cryptotalkradio.net, back in January, completely ignoring him when he reached out to help. We launch and we have unrealistic jumps, and Crypto Talk Radio does excessive coverage, arguably one of the first and arguably one of the better ones. And we go along and we help and we inform, and we heard from the community that our coverage was part of the reason they made a decision to jump into the thing. So we felt like we did significantly enough to at least give our part informational, all the way to the chasing shinies. And then it's allegedly that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't understand. It doesn't know what he's talking about. People should stop following the channel. And now people see the same thing I've been saying is the truth, which is it appeared that Libero had been abandoned. What I said. And I said this because I'm just looking at the same graphs you're looking at. I'm looking at the same lack of strategy you're looking at. And I'm looking at the same lack of focus that you're looking at. And I challenge the community to find some evidence where I was wrong and say, where did I get it wrong, so that we can solve it and we can move it forward. If I'm wrong, why am I featured on the site, and so on. And I sent questions over to the devs, and this whole doesn't understand came back. And I heard back now from the team via Terra. Apparently this came from the dev. I want to share the answers because I think it's important for you to make your own decision. I'll summarize one thing though. I'm not confident that they're going to move forward with working with me. Based on their answers, it seems to me that they're not necessarily going to connect and make a deal with me, which means they don't really want my help. That's the takeaway I got from the responses I see. And there still has not been a schedule for this COO that nobody knows exists. So I'm taking that on face that there's likely not going to be a partnership with Crypto Talk Radio to help get the project back on track, but the answers are likely why. That's why I want to share them so you can understand why I make that summary statement. So the first question I asked was, I wanted to have them say, why are you not focusing on Libero? And I said that repeatedly, I said that it's clear that they're shifting focus to Libera, and they don't want you to buy Libero because they removed the bond, right? Their response was that, and somebody in the community responded with this first, but they affirmed that apparently they're going to do an AMA, and this is going to happen in 2 days, and they're going to bring up these questions and answer the questions. This ties to my fourth concern, but just so you know, they're going to do the AMA allegedly, but they confirmed to me that yes, they are focused on Libera, as I said. So I question why somebody in the telescam said that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't understand what he's talking about, when I straight said the same thing that you're now affirming to be the truth. I digress. Quote, Libera is where the Libero holders can really continue to earn from our system in the long run. So this affirms what I said, where I said that ultimately you'll still get the passives from the Libero that's staked, but they're going all in full throttle with all things Libera, primarily the Libero miner, because it's the new shiny, and that's the way they're going, and they're not going to fix Libero, is how I read that. That's how I take that. They gave a number about how much is staked in the Libero miner. That to me says that they were trying to build up, it's kind of like a crowdfunding type thing, right? That you're building up all this liquidity in anticipation of the exchange listing, which I'll get to as my next number 2, but they basically put over how much liquidity they built, because Libera miner is liquidity staking. So they're building up liquidity funds all in Libera, and they're essentially putting that over. So that tells me that that was their plan. They didn't tell the community this, that we need to build liquidity, we need to build up because of XYZ. They just launched a thing and didn't tell you why. I said it before, the why is the power. Without the why, people get confused. Now you have the why. It's because they wanted to accumulate more in the liquidity for Libera. This also confirms in the question I had in the chat the other day that truly this is not, by definition, a Ponzi scheme, because it means that they are not, for whatever reason, using the Libero funds to make this Libera happen. They're treating them independent. And as I said, the Libera, you must buy into it. That's what they want you to do. They just didn't tell you that. Goes back to my question of how it is that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't understand what he's talking about when they're confirming everything I said is the truth. My gut tells me they didn't want me to put it out there early. If they had talked to me, we could have come to that agreement and I wouldn't have, but they didn't talk to me. Moving on, they say that there's going to be more banners, more advertising, marketing about Libera. Stress, Libera, not Libero. Libera is their focus. Libera is their future. Libera is where they are putting their development initiative. If you go to libera.financial, they totally revamped the front end, and it actually looks pretty decent good. But the Libero is not touched. They're all in on Libera Financial, just so you know. My question number 2 is about the exchanges and what the heck went on with Bitmart and LBank. They came back and they targeted Bitmart, but I suspect it's the same with LBank, and I'll tell you why it's an issue. But they came back and said that Bitmart, apparently they're talking still to Bitmart. If you heard my original when I said, if you're going to announce these exchanges coming, I say put a big bold thing that says we can't say when this is going to go because you can't control when the exchange is going to give the green light. I said that this is what I think you should do, and they ignored me. And I said that if you don't have all the exchanges you promised, it's going to harm investor sentiment. We saw significant dumps, just like I said was going to happen. And I had people, actually their tribe members, come back and say, I was there in the Discord where they were trying to calm people down that were pissed off because, just like you said, this didn't happen. It was obvious, though. This is outside the bubble thinking, right? So apparently that the Bitmart was delayed. What they said is because of the APY that was expressed for Libero, because remember, Libera is wrapped Libero. So the amount of growth inside Libera is based on the APY of Libero as previously stated, which is why they changed the mechanics. They didn't tell you any of this like they should have, which is we have this issue. This is what we're changing. This is why we're changing it. They didn't state it on the DAO either. And that's a concern because it defeats the purpose of a DAO if you're not transparent about why you're doing it. So this is the reason that at least Bitmart, they said Bitmart pushed back mostly around the APYs, and the change in APYs should, and they put should in there twice, should move Libera forward for sometime in June. That's fine. My issue had not been that you have issues. That's not the problem. The problem is communication, not telling people what you're doing. Don't advertise. I said, don't advertise a thing if you cannot deliver day one, because people will bite you. This goes to communication. I said it 5 million times on 3 different videos, which goes to my point of why it is that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't understand what the heck he's talking about. Moving to number 3, I talked about the site redesign. Again, Libera Financial has been, at least that front's been revamped. At the bottom, it's got a nice set of links and very nice clean flow and images, and it's actually very well done. Only Libera, and only after I called out the sites suck, and they only did that one, and I suspect they're not going to do the rest of them. Well, that's not really what I meant. What I meant was fix all of it. Ideally, there's one bank, and you can interplay. Doesn't look like they're going to do that. No problem. They said suggestions, ideas, examples, that's fine, but they already affirmed they're not caring about Libero. I'm working under the assumption that you embrace all of it, because when I responded, I said, what about Phantom Libero? It's a different site. What are you going to do on that one? Are you going to abandon that one too? Because that's what you're doing. It has the APY problem. When you get to that F Libera, that means you're going to have to drop its APY, which is what I was afraid of, is if they're going to go forward on Phantom, it's going to jack that up. Or do you leave it alone and let it kind of run off on its own? I don't know what the answer is on that one. The Phantom Libero Twitter account followed us on Twitter. I don't know what that means. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything directly from that one. I was told it's the same devs. It's the same devs. It's the same process. There's no, they're not communicating this. And when they talk about site redesigns and you're going all in on Libera, Libera has nothing to do with Phantom Libero. They haven't talked about that plan. The roadmap of what you're doing still isn't on any of this stuff. So, summary, apparently they're open to site redesign, but because they're changing and basically abandoning certain tokens, it's not going to work. Because I'm not saying don't do those. I'm saying build one site that includes those, including Libero, and ideally that you can use your existing Libero to get into Libera without existing investment, and build some sort of burn or whatever you got to do to where people don't have to put more money in the thing after they've locked their funds for 4 years, because that's just going to piss people off. Haven't heard back yet. Number 4, and most important, I was trying to understand why the dev doesn't want to come on the air. And that was simply, just tell me why. And it's got to be something I can verify so I can help explain it to you. Because right now, as I understand it, nobody really has seen this guy. What they said was that he apparently can write English, but cannot pronounce English words. And there's a concern that he doesn't, maybe for credibility, maybe for whatever. And so they choose to do the chat so they can capture transcripts so that you can search against it and do all that stuff. And apparently the team has said, yeah, let's just do that. What I said is that I believe the community are pretty smart people. Even if you did, like in the old days, right? Way back, we're talking late 90s, early 2000s. In the old days, what you do is you get on video and it had like a terrible frame rate. It's like 10 frames a second. It's like garbage frame rate. But you couldn't, you normally wouldn't do voice because, like, if you're a kid, you don't want to wake up your parents or whatever. So you wouldn't do voice. So you would chat to each other. And it was fine. We can read, and it's usually faster. And that's how you do it. That's all I was saying. Even if you just got on video and just showed yourself and you're just chatting back and forth, that's better than not showing a face at all. Like the whole business of not being able to pronounce, that's fine. Just disclose, I'm not able to pronounce English that well. Do the best you can. Like if I think of Canelo Alvarez, top boxer in the world, he can't pronounce English that well himself, but at least he tries. Gennady Golovkin, he can't pronounce English that well, at least he tries. I think you at least try, just to show, look, I want to put a face and a name and a voice so that it lends credibility. Some people care about that. At minimum, at least just put your face out there and just have the chat back and forth, and that captures us the transcript and problems are solved. That's all I said is, I still think you could do it. Let's just do that so we can allay some of the concerns that nobody's seen the guy. I think that's the bigger problem. I don't think it's about whether you heard him. And then if we just need to capture transcripts, if we do chat, it's the same thing that you're doing now. What the heck's the difference? So that's where we're at. Apparently there's an AMA on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be Telescam. I'm not going to be there. I would encourage you in the community listening to this, if you have any concerns about anything that's stated, make sure to raise those questions, and hopefully they take your questions on the air and try to address them. I know past AMAs, they seem to have tried to capture every question possible. So it seems like they're at least trying this. I don't know whether they'll do anything about it. And most importantly, I still don't know if something was said where Crypto Talk Radio doesn't understand a thing. I don't know who said that, and I don't know why. Because it seems like there's an inconsistent behavior with the mods and the devs where somebody believes something and somebody else believes something else. All I can tell you is, from what I can tell you here, what I see, Libero is not a focus anymore. They're not, apparently from what they're saying, they're not going to do anything on Libero. It's basically a done deal. I treat that as abandoned, because if you're not going to do any more efforts on Libero to fix its problems, that's the same thing as abandon, essentially. And if you're going all in on Libera, there might be a point in the future where enough burn has happened to where your Libero gets its value back. So I'm not telling you that it's going to be eternally low value or no value. It could be that at some future state that the thing turns into something. That's possible. However, I don't know that that's 100% true. 1. 2, there's no guarantee it's going to be here in 4 years if you locked it in 4 years. If you're still in the wallet, you can kind of watch its price movement, see what happens. If they do Bitmart next, Bitmart is exposed to the United States. However, it forces the KYC. They change that. So I don't know that it's going to really move much of the needle. It should move some needle, but I don't know that it's going to, like it should. I think LBank is the key. And if Bitmart had this issue, then LBank probably had the same issue for the same reason. Well, if they're only doing Bitmart, because they only called out Bitmart, then that means LBank's delayed. So I expect that the volume is not going to be where it needs to be. And remember that Bitmart and LBank, they're not the largest exchanges. So we have tons of other tokens. Like I think Satama's on Bitmart. It did move the needle. LBank's got a number of tokens. It did move the needle. So it's not like, I'm not telling you it's going to immediately go to $100. It probably is going to have some jumps when it launches. But I think the fact that you still have these fundamental problems in the eco, I think are going to hinder the potential for growth because investor sentiment has been harmed by the actions and inactions so far. And I've done the best I can to try to help. But again, if their focus is Libero, no more, then I'm not sure that I can do any help further because my help was the whole ecosystem, all of it. Libero, F Libero, right? I was trying to do all of it, not just this one. And it seems like all they care about is just this one going forward. At that point, there's nothing I can do because all the information I would recommend is completely contradictory to what they're trying to do, which is, nope, we're just going to go full throttle Libera. And if you're in the eco and you want to get on board, you can make some money, but you're going to need to pay a little bit more in there to get on the miner. And then you run the risk that they abandon the Libera and jump to some other shiny because it follows the same pattern. So I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, and I apologize for that, but I felt it's important to be transparent. I definitely cannot help because they're pretty much confirming, I'd say 99%, that they're done with Libero. You're in and it is what it is. There's nothing they're going to do to help Libero at this point. And I don't know what they're going to do with F Libero or if they're going to continue with F Libera, which I think would destroy that one. So if they do plan to do the F Libera, I would say don't put any more into F Libero because it's going to be the same problem. You're going to get stuck and no value out of it. If you do the F Libero, don't do the bank. Just leave it in your wallet and watch it like any other token. You won't get the passive Binance USD, but you'll still get the reflection rewards in the wallet and you'll get more of them for not putting in the bank, which makes no sense. If you do want to go into Libero, I would recommend not using the bank because I don't know that the Binance USD rewards, because of the supply, is enough to justify versus the reflection rewards that you get, because you get more when it's not in the bank than when it's in the bank. So it's up to you, obviously, but I would recommend don't buy into, if you're going to buy in the ecosystem, they want you to go straight to Libera and nothing else. Not Libero, not F Libero, because they're going to do F Libera. That's my recommendation. You are free to choose what you do. I'm just saying I don't want anybody else to get stuck like the Libero people in the bank because they're assuming a thing. And it turns out that the team is going a completely different direction. And then you're trapped with something that's a losing asset, at least for the short term. And if it does get some value later down the road, at least if it's in your wallet, you can possibly get some money out of it at some point. But if you're in the bank, you're toast for the next 4 years. If you locked for 4 years, you're toast at that point, and you're just basically hoping that it goes up in value and move on to some other project, and just kind of forget about it, out of sight, out of mind it, or buy into Libera. Just know that the Libera may or may not give you any value on the Libero side. The expectation is that the centralized exchange listings, all three of them, should generate enough value to where you see a little bit more movement on the Libero side. I'm saying that there's no guarantees on it. And because of the trap that they're in with the whole, burning, minting excess supply and everything else, I'm not confident in it, but there's always a possibility at some point that, yes, there is some profit generated because of whatever happens with Libera. Libera is their focus, though. So, if you're in Libero and don't plan to go to Libera, there's nothing there for you according to their own affirmation. You are free to confirm that on Wednesday. Just let them tell you Libera is their future. And if they openly say that, because they say they're going to do that, they say that they're going to put that out there in the AMA, that Libera is the future and they're focused on Libera and they're not focused on Libero. If they say that, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people in the community. And I don't know what that means. And so, que sera, sera. And I apologize I tried, but I there's nothing I can do because they're doing everything opposite of what I would do. And I won't advocate anybody to consider the ecosystem because I don't want them to get trapped in a thing. If they're a fan of mining, like Big Beans or something else, I'll tell them about it. But I still would recommend it over those other solutions because those other ones are doing it better and they have more experience doing it. I would not recommend this one because it's too new and the experience isn't there to do this kind of thing. And so time will tell. As a close note, because I don't want to be like a death knell, but I want to thank the community for doing everything they could to try to get them in touch. And they did get in touch, but it doesn't look like they're going to go forward with my service because they don't really want to do what I would want to do, which is to fix Libero. They don't want to do that. They're all in 100% on Libero. And I'm not going to pitch something like that when I don't believe it's the right answer by their own documentation. It contradicts what I would believe. So chances are there's not going to be a deal unless if they completely go back on what they're saying. And I doubt that's going to happen because according to somebody there, Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't understand. So they already don't believe in my service, and that's okay. It's up to them. But I apologize to the community, and I thank you for at least putting the effort out there and trying to get them on board, but it's probably not going to happen at this point.